Welcome to Learn English with History. Today, we are going to tell the amazing story of the first man to go to the moon, Neil Armstrong. We will use simple English and explain new words so you can learn easily. The dream of going to space. For thousands of years, people have looked at the sky and wondered about the moon. They asked questions like, what is it made of? And can we go there? But for a very long time, it was impossible. People had no way to travel into space. In the 1950s and 1960s, two countries, the United States and the Soviet Union, now Russia, were in a space race. A race is a competition to see who is the fastest. The space race was not about running. It was about which country could explore space first. The Soviet Union sent the first satellite, Sputnik, into space in 1957. They also sent the first person, Yuri Gagarin, into space in 1961. The United States wanted to do something even bigger. They wanted to send people to the moon. In 1961, U.S. President John F. Kennedy made a big promise. We choose to go to the moon. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. This meant that the United States would work hard to make it happen, even though it would be very difficult. Apollo 11, the mission to the moon. The United States started a program called Apollo to send astronauts, people who traveled to space, to the moon. The most important mission was Apollo 11, which would try to land people on the moon for the first time. 3 astronauts were chosen for Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong, he was the commander, leader of the mission. He would be the first person to walk on the moon. Buzz Aldrin, he was the second astronaut who would walk on the moon. Michael Collins, he was the pilot of the command module, the part of the spaceship that stayed in space. He did not walk on the moon, but he played an important role in bringing the astronauts home. On July 16, 1969, the Apollo 11 spacecraft was ready to launch, go into space. It was connected to a huge rocket called Saturn V. This rocket was as tall as a 36-story building and was the most powerful rocket ever built at that time. As the countdown, numbers counting down to 0, reached 0, the rocket lifted off from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It was a historic moment. Millions of people watched on television. The journey to the moon. The journey to the moon took 4 days. The astronauts lived inside a small spacecraft. They ate dried food, drank water from bags, and slept in zero gravity without weight. Finally, on July 20, 1969, Apollo 11 reached the moon's orbit, the path around the moon. Now, it was time for Armstrong and Aldrin to land on the surface of the moon. Their spacecraft had 2 parts. The command module, Columbia, this stayed in orbit around the moon with Michael Collins inside. The lunar module, Eagle, this was the part that would land on the moon. Armstrong and Aldrin were inside this. The Eagle began to go down towards the moon. But there was a problem. The computer was giving error messages, and Armstrong saw that they were heading toward a dangerous area with big rocks. He quickly took control and found a flat place to land. Then Armstrong spoke the famous words, "The Eagle has landed." This meant they had safely arrived on the moon. The first steps on the moon. A few hours later, Armstrong and Aldrin were ready to go outside. Armstrong slowly climbed down a ladder, a tool to climb up and down. Finally, he put his foot onto the moon. He became the first person in history to stand in another world. At that moment, he spoke one of the most famous sentences ever. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." What does this mean? Small step, a simple movement forward. Giant leap, a very big jump or progress. Mankind, all people in the world. Armstrong was saying that his step on the moon was small, but it was a big moment for all of humanity. Buzz Aldrin came out next. He looked around and said, "Magnificent desolation." This means the moon was beautiful, but also empty and lonely. The astronauts did many things on the moon. They walked around and explored. They collected rocks and soil, dirt from the ground, to study. They planted an American flag. They talked to the U.S. President Richard Nixon. They also left a plaque, a metal sign that said, "We came in peace for all mankind." This showed that the moon landing was for all people, not just one country. Returning to Earth. After 21 hours on the moon, it was time to go home. Armstrong and Aldrin got back inside the Eagle and launched back into space. They connected with Michael Collins in the Columbia and started the journey back to Earth. On July 24, 1969, the Apollo 11 spacecraft came back to Earth and landed in the ocean. A U.S. Navy ship picked up the astronauts. They were safe. People all over the world celebrated, were very happy, because humans had visited the moon for the first time. Why was this important? The Apollo 11 moon landing was one of the greatest achievements in history. It showed that people can do incredible things if they work together. Since then, other missions have gone to the moon, and in the future, NASA and other space agencies make decisions for the future to go back to the moon and even to Mars. Final question for you. If you could go to space, would you go? Write your answer in the comments. Thank you for watching Learn English with History. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you next time.